Welcome to Reasonable Doubt. James Hopkins for the defense.
Welcome back to Reasonable Doubt. James Hopkins for the defense. James Hopkins is a top-tier criminal defense attorney with over 30 years of experience in cases, homicide, drug crimes, embezzlement, earning a spot among the top 100 trial lawyers. An expert in forensic DNA evidence and a fierce advocate, Hopkins delivers strategic, high-impact defense for every client. I'm Evan Mack, and this is High Stakes, navigating New York's white-collar crime landscape. James, sir, welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's get into this. This is interesting stuff. What types of white-collar crimes do you encounter most frequently in your practice?
Well, there's all kinds of charges that can result. Right now, I'm working on a fairly high stakes embezzlement case from a senior employee of a company. But it ranges from forgeries to embezzlement to counterfeiting, bank fraud. There's all kinds of things that come under the ambit of white collar crime. Generally speaking, it has to do with theft from an employer. That's probably the most common that I come across. There's also theft of government benefits, falsely stating people are injured on the job, for instance, and collecting workers' comp benefits while otherwise working. There's a number of different areas that come under that rubric. So.
How do you define white-collar crime, and how does it differ from other types of crime?
Well, it's nonviolent by its nature, and it usually involves somebody inside an organization. There could be fraudulent applications for loans. There could be false statements on government forms. There's a lot of different areas that could trigger a criminal investigation. But white collar usually involves monetary loss, not physical threats or physical harm.
So what are the most common concerns your clients have when facing white collar charges?
Well, these are usually people who are employed, who are otherwise upstanding members of society. They may have, oftentimes there's a substance abuse issue behind some of these thefts. There was, they mismanage money to which they've been entrusted. There are, unfortunately, some attorneys who have misappropriated client funds and find themselves, criminally charged here. It's usually because of financial pressures in their life, or substance abuse, or both.
What are some common misconceptions about a white collar crime that you encounter?
The prosecutor is going to treat them as somebody who's otherwise entitled to status in society. They can find themselves staring down at a state prison sentence, and it's not like the guy who's busted every other week for selling dope on the corner. These are people that really have never had the experience of having handcuffs put on them, and it's a very much a shock to the system. It doesn't excuse it. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but they have to realize that they're in real trouble, and they need representation very quickly.
When you take on a white collar crime case, what are your initial steps in developing a defense strategy?
Each case is different, obviously, but
right.
A lot of times companies lose money, and they put the blame on a specific employee, and it's not necessarily accurate to do that. Sometimes it's simply sloppy accounting that needs to be investigated, and other times, some check writer is going to be facing, is going to be the patsy for for the people who are running the company who are actually siphoning off money. So it depends on the circumstances, and there are some people that engage in theft. That's unfortunate, but that's the case. I
Right.
try to understand the circumstances of the individual case, the person's role at the company or at the government agency or wherever we're investigating, and try to understand any motivations, any defenses. In forgery cases, there are handwriting and analysts that that are simply wrong. I had a case a couple of years ago where a guy's signature, he was an artist, and his signature was never the same. In any two documents. Um, the prosecutor tried to pin some sort of fraud on the wife, saying that she was taking the money that to which she was not entitled. When in fact, not only was it his signature, but even if it hadn't been, she had power of attorney. So it was kind of you know a, a ridiculous set of circumstances. But she was facing felony charges. So
Wow.
it's the kind of thing that needs to be um, investigated and defended.
How does the legal landscape in New York specifically impact white collar crime cases?
What's in the news right now is certainly um, impactful. We have government officials who are charged with mortgage fraud.
Right.
That kind of raises the recognition factor that that there could be other things. I remember a few years ago. This was not my case, but it was a colleague of mine. Um, he had one of those credit card offers where you self-report your income, and he overstated his income. And one day the bank did a check. He had never missed a payment. He had never,
Wow.
there was no problem. But they charged him with offering a false instrument for filing, and
Wow.
because his income did not match what he put in the writing, and he was prosecuted. Now, my colleague was able to resolve that successfully, but that's the kind of thing that you don't often think about. You just kind of dash off one of those
Mm.
credit card offers you get in the mail,
Yeah.
and don't think twice about it.
Mm. So James, what role do federal agencies, SEC, FBI, play in these white collar crime investigations in New York City?
Well, the FBI handles the federal investigations on it. The SEC clearly has a big role. Here in Syracuse, New York, we don't have a lot of interaction with the SEC. My daughter used to, because she was down in Manhattan, and she did that all the time. She was with a big firm down there, but there are SEC implications. But again, that's a very, very small part of my particular practice. Now in federal court, there have been, I've appeared in other states, in other jurisdictions, and here on behalf of companies that were investigating widespread um, um, alleged fraud. And I know a few years ago there was one down in New Jersey, that in federal court down in New Jersey, that was simply a misunderstanding of my guy's role in the company, but it looked bad for him. He was being prosecuted for millions of dollars worth of misappropriated funds,
Wow.
um, and it turns out that he was just a small you know piece of a much larger puzzle, and we were able to establish that. So.
Mm. So James, can you walk us through a particularly challenging case you've handled and the strategies you implemented?
Well, that one I just mentioned was,
Yeah.
they were talking about millions of dollars worth of diverted funds,
Yeah.
and he held a managerial position, but not to the extent that the prosecutors believed that he did. and the actual owners of the company, the people who had you know, the CEO titles and and the CFO titles and those
Right.
people, they were trying to play it off on this guy, and at first glance, it looked like he was the guy who was making the calls, but we were able to sit down with with the federal authorities down there and explain ourselves, and he did get a small slap on the wrist, but for being a little bit stupid about this, but he was able to get on with his life. Um,
Mm. How do you build a rapport with clients who may be anxious or fearful about the charges they face or may be facing?
well, I like to think that I have empathy for other people. I try to put myself in their shoes. Um, I recognize that some people just simply made a mistake, or more often they just got in over their head, and then they don't know what they how to get out of it, and they start digging a hole deeper and deeper. And at some point, the first order of business is to stop digging. We got to start making a concerted effort to minimize the damage and try to get them into try to get the get them back on track.
Hmm. James, sir, appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
All right, guys, and thank you for listening to Reasonable Doubt. James Hopkins for the defense. You can connect with James at jameshopkinlawfirm.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, leave a review of the show. We love having you a part of our community. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.